This is CBC Here and Now.
Okay, so in any case, when suspicious vehicles are in the area, in your neighborhood, we encourage people to contact the police.
Tonight, the RNC wants you to report abandoned vehicles.
Our Ryan Cook finds one and walks us through what to do.
And could the Muskrat Falls inquiry itself put the project at risk of increased costs?
Terry Roberts reports on the latest risk report. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Debbie Cooper. The RNC is making a plea to residents to report abandoned vehicles. It comes after a stolen car sat on a downtown street for more than 2 months.
As Here and Now's Ryan Cook reports, it's a situation that could have been avoided.
Melissa Bradbury first made a public plea in November. Her Honda CR-V was missing and she wanted it back. That was around the same time complaints started on Eric Street in downtown St. John's. Residents were noticing a strange vehicle that didn't belong in their neighborhood. Complaints were made about the abandoned car, but they were made to the city, which enforces parking, and not the RNC, which chases stolen vehicles. That prompted the police to call a press conference today.
This time of year, oftentimes vehicles are covered in snow, and if a vehicle is determined to be suspicious or doesn't belong in a neighborhood or has been blocking the road for a period of time, we encourage the public to contact the RNC, and we can determine the status of that vehicle.
After we spoke with the RNC today, we found this car behind us on Park Hill Street in the west end of St. John's. Residents say it's been parked here for more than a month and it's now in the way of snow clearing. So we're going to take the RNC's advice. We're going to call it in. Yeah, I'd like to report a vehicle that's abandoned on Park Hill Street.
Right on Park Hill Street. Unless it's reported stolen, we won't move it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's up to the city to move it.
I'm just wondering if it is a stolen vehicle.
Yep, I'll check there.
A member of the RNC just called me back to say that this vehicle is not stolen. It's been abandoned here for some time, though. So while this is not a police issue, the RNC say they still want you to follow this procedure. It only takes them a few minutes to check a plate, but it could save somebody a lot of time searching for their stolen vehicle. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
One man died in a crash last night in Conception Bay North. At around 11:30, an SUV slid off the road into a ditch near Canada Post in Upper Island Cove. The 81-year-old man from Upper Island Cove died at the scene. Police say the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner is involved and the investigation continues.
A St. John's police officer is denying he broke the law when he issued a ticket for an offense that didn't happen. Constable Joe Smythe was in court again today, facing an obstruction of justice charge related to a 2017 traffic stop. It's not the first time his behavior has been publicly scrutinized. A public inquiry concluded Smythe used appropriate force when he fatally shot Don Dunphy in 2015. Here Now's Mark Quinn has more from today's trial.
Joe Smythe says it was a mistake, but not a lie. Today, the court watched a video of Smythe being interviewed by the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team. It's the independent group that was brought in to investigate the complaint against Smythe. The complaint was made by motorcycle driver Saeed Husseini. Smythe gave Husseini 4 traffic tickets on May 12, 2017. All of them were later dismissed in court. One was for running a red light, but dashcam video taken from Husseini's motorcycle showed the light was clearly green. In the video shown today, the court saw Smythe's initial reaction to being shown Husseini's video. Smythe said, quote, "He didn't have a red light, obviously. That's pretty clear." So why did Smythe issue the ticket? The officer said he perceived that Husseini had run a light. But an ASERT investigator who doesn't appear on camera pressed Smythe further.
Did you write that red light ticket maliciously? Did you write it in deceit? That's the issue here. Absolutely not.
Smythe's lawyer Jerome Kennedy says there's no evidence to suggest that Smythe had it out for Husseini before, during, or after the tickets were issued. The trial is scheduled to continue tomorrow. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
I don't know him. I didn't know him. I just wanted the story to get to him.
I'm surprised that everyone's so surprised. Why wouldn't you do it?
One hockey mom's day is made after this stranger left a surprise on her windshield.
They meet for the first time. That's ahead.
It's a nice story, too.
It is very nice. And we're hoping for nice news in the weather, Ashley. No?
No. Do I ever really bring good news, though, lately?
Sometimes.
I know, that's true. So, I do have good news for tonight, though.
Okay.
That's definitely in the forecast. Looks nice. If you take a look at the weather on the way, it should be quiet tonight. The winds for the northeast coast eventually will ease. Still going to stay breezy, but not quite as windy as we saw this afternoon. Otherwise, there are wind warnings on the west coast tonight. That is for tomorrow. That's ahead of this storm that's on the way. For the next couple of days, it looks like it's going to be quite messy, wintry mix with starting as snow, changing over through to ice pellets, freezing rain, and then eventually rain, it looks like, for the southeastern portions of the province. Up through Labrador, this will be snow, and it looks like it'll continue through to Saturday. So a little bit of a messy system on the way. I'll have all those details and a look ahead at your heading towards the weekend forecast when I come back. Deb?
Thanks, Ashley. Nearly 2 months after a flow line leaked an estimated 250,000 liters of oil into the Atlantic, production is still shut down at Husky's Sea Rose site. The company was attempting to restart operations after an intense winter storm in November. According to the latest report from the CNLOPB, maintenance is ongoing, but production is still suspended. Vessel, satellite, and ROV inspections continue as well.
The ongoing Muskrat Falls inquiry is trying to find out why the controversial hydro project is so far over budget and behind schedule. Now, a report by an expert risk consultant says that very same inquiry, along with 3 other strategic risks, could actually drive costs even higher by hundreds of millions. Here now's Terry Roberts is following that story today, and he joins us live now from our newsroom with the details. So Terry, what's this all about?
Yeah, well, if you've been following the Muskrat Falls inquiry, you've probably heard of a company called Westney Consulting Group. They have expertise in risk management, and prior to the sanctioning of Muskrat Falls, they were urging Nalcor to take a cautious approach to its cost estimates for that project. Now, if you were listening to the evidence at the inquiry, it appears Nalcor essentially ignored that advice, and we all know what happened. Well, Westney is back with another report on potential strategic risk for the project, and as you said, there are 4 of them, and if they materialize, they could be expensive. Now, the inquiry itself, Westney says, is a real serious risk. Out of the best case scenario, Westney says the inquiry could add an extra $45 million in cost to the project. Worst case scenario, up to about $165 million. It's spelled out in this project update for government's Muskrat Falls Oversight Committee. 4 strategic risks still remaining, with a range of potential cost of anywhere from $170 million to $370 million. Among the risks are the threat of more protests at the Muskrat site in Labrador, like these in 2016 that temporarily halted construction. The potential that Nalcor might be directed to clear more vegetation from the Muskrat Reservoir in order to mitigate the impacts of methylmercury is another risk. And there's also the possibility that government might make directives of Nalcor that could increase project costs, according to the report. But in a strange twist, the very inquiry that's investigating what went wrong with Muskrat could actually compound the cost overruns. Nalcor admits the inquiry has the potential for a loss of focus, with key team members such as this man, Project Director Paul Harrington, being called in for interviews with lawyers and auditors, and spending days on the witness stand. And then there's this big number, 4.4 million documents entered into evidence here at the inquiry, many of them commercially sensitive, and could be used against Nalcor in future litigation by contractors or Indigenous groups. Reached today while on vacation, Nalcor CEO Stan Marshall repeated his concerns about the timing of the inquiry, saying it should have been held after the project was finished, and says the inquiry is very much a risk.
I mean, there's a lot of commercial sensitive information out there that contractors could use in a legal dispute with us that could cost us dearly. There's a lot of demands made upon our key people to be doing things that have nothing to do with the actual execution of the work, to respond to inquiry demands, regulatory reviews, ATIPA requests, you name it. Like I say, these are real risks imposed upon us.
Now, if these costs do actually materialize, there's no money in the construction budget for them. Nalcor has spent about $9 billion so far on the Muskrat Falls project, and there's about another $1 billion to be spent already earmarked. So Marshall says the priority now is trying to minimize the impact of those risks as much as possible. Now, he also, in what might be considered a jab at the Liberals and Premier Dwight Ball, said today that, about calling this inquiry while construction is still ongoing. Marshall said this: at the end of the day, the people who wanted the inquiry will also have to live with any consequences in terms of the cost. Reporting live from the newsroom, I'm Terry Roberts for Here and Now.
In national news now, the truck driver involved in the Humboldt Broncos bus crash has just pleaded guilty to 29 charges in connection to that deadly collision last spring.
I wanted the families to know that he's devastated by the grief that he's caused them.
Jaskarit Singh Sidhu appeared in a Melfort courtroom this morning. He pleaded guilty to 16 counts of dangerous driving causing death and 13 counts of dangerous driving causing bodily harm. The crash took place on April 6th of last year while the Humboldt Broncos hockey team was heading to a playoff game. Sidhu has been out on bail since July. Sentencing is set for January 28th.
The father of Evan Thomas, one of the Humboldt Broncos victims, spoke with the media today just after Singh's court appearance. He'll make a victim impact statement later this month. Here's what Scott Thomas said today right after Singh's guilty plea.
Some relief that there was a guilty plea today. It saves a lot of emotion. It releases a lot of emotion, but it also saves a lot of really hard times, and there's still some hard times to come. The combined statement of facts, and of course all of us will have the opportunity to have our victim impact statements, and so that's going to be a tough week, absolutely, but at least it saves us all going through a trial.
Meanwhile, the Humboldt Broncos team released a statement. Its president, Jamie Brockman, writes, "I commend Mr. Sidhu for taking responsibility for his actions and sparing the survivors and the families the anguish and turmoil of rehashing this tragedy in court. I know Mr. Sidhu has also been deeply affected by this tragedy. His careless actions will haunt him for the rest of his life, and I'm sure it is a relief to move forward."
Toronto's mayor has asked for a review of clothing donation bins. Overnight, a woman died after being trapped inside a bin. John Tory says it's clear the bins need to be reviewed.
We should examine the safety implications of these boxes, and they're set up in a way to make it difficult for people to have access into the box, to the inside of the box, but obviously not safe enough.
Emergency services were called to a downtown Toronto location overnight. They tried to rescue the woman, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. Her death marks at least the 8th such incident in Canada in 4 years. That includes a 34-year-old man who died in a West Vancouver bin last month. Advocates for the homeless say redesigning the donation bins could save lives.
Here at home, the Chief Medical Examiner's Office spotted a notable difference when tallying drug deaths for the beginning of last year. Cocaine is killing more people in this province than in previous years. The so-called party drug has even surpassed opioids, painkillers that routinely top that list of deadly drugs. Well, why that is? Well, that's a question even professionals are struggling to answer. Here now's Ariana Kelland reports.
Every year, the Chief Medical Examiner looks at how many people have died from drug overdoses. But the first half of 2018 brought something different. More people are dying after taking cocaine, and fewer are dying from opioid use.
We often look at cocaine as being a party drug, good time drug, something that's been around for 2,000 years. And it's not going to hurt you. We're just going to do that now the weekend, and it's in every walk of life.
And it's deadly. From January to June of 2018, 14 people died after using drugs. 9 of those people died after taking cocaine. By comparison, 2017 had almost the opposite. Opioids were by far the most deadly, though cocaine was also detected in some cases. So with fewer legal opioid prescriptions being written, is cocaine just filling a gap? And what does that mean for opioid use in this province?
What I see is as we're getting into getting good treatment for methadone, just purely if I look at my buprenorphine naloxone patients, then we're seeing the drug of abuse now is becoming cocaine. And if it wasn't cocaine, then it would be methamphetamines. And if it wasn't methamphetamines, then it'd be something else.
This recent Canadian Health Institute report found opioid hospitalizations are up in St. John's, with some of the highest rates in Atlantic Canada. 48 people were treated in capital city hospitals with opioid poisoning in 2017. But unlike the rest of Canada, this province has an older population being sent to hospital.
Why isn't it working on the other end? Is it opiates we're not getting? Are these sick people who have heart disease, respiratory disease, kidney disease, and that's leading to not deaths but morbidity?
Another statistic that's left professionals puzzled, but ready to find the answer before next year's annual death count. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, you can't go far on a flat tire, but a little kindness goes a long way. That's the lesson taken from a story that's been racking up likes and shares on Facebook for the past few days. It's about two strangers, a flat tire, and the power of positivity. Here now, Zach Gowdy has more.
This story begins on a chilly Saturday morning, but trust me, it'll warm your heart. Kayla Lazaro was just leaving hockey practice with her husband and their young son.
So I was parked like right here, and my husband was parked across the way. And we walked out, and that's when my husband goes, "Oh my God, there's a note on your car." And I was like, oh great, someone hit my car. And I thought, well, at least I left a note, because it could be much worse.
But the note contained a big surprise.
And he said, "Oh my God, Kayla, you had a flat tire and someone pumped it up." And I said, "What?" So I was like, wait, I had a flat tire and then someone pumped it up? I got in my car and I sat down and I thought, like, this man went out of his way to pump up my tire, even though I didn't know it was flat, and he could have just went on and no one would have ever known the difference.
Later at the garage, Lazaro was still overwhelmed.
I thought to myself, you know, we really need to let people know. This man needs to be recognized. Like, this is awesome. Like, this is so much negativity in the world. And I thought, you really need positivity. You need positive stories. And I don't know him. I didn't know him. I just wanted the story to get to him. So I posted a picture of the note and just a little blurb about what had happened. And it got to him within like an hour.
The man is Rod Taff. He commented on Lazaro's post, but they had never met or spoken to each other until now.
Hello, Mr. Taff. How are you? Hi. It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, too.
Thank you so very, very much.
Listen, you're welcome.
I am so appreciative. I actually cried, honestly. I did. I got in the car and I called my mom and I was like, how nice is this man?
Rod, how has it felt for you to get so much attention from this small good deed?
Just overwhelmed, really. You know, totally did not expect it, obviously. Again, just standing there looking, man, look, she got a flat tire. It's going to take a bit of time to go try and find you. And it's like, I got a compressor. I'll just fill it up.
Wow,
that's
awesome.
It was just a simple, I don't know why, you know, I'm surprised that everyone's so surprised. Why wouldn't you do it?
Lazaro's Facebook post has since been shared more than 500 times. Taff wasn't looking for credit, but he's glad the story may inspire someone else.
There should be a good news segment. The last 10 minutes of every broadcast should be good news stories. Leave you on a good note, you know?
The more popularity it gains, the more it generates this movement to pay it forward, and the more people want to be involved, more people want to do things like that. So if it starts with something small like this, then, you know, it's awesome.
Zach Gowdy, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, great story. We don't have to wait till the last 10 minutes. I mean, here you go in the first 20 minutes of Here and Now, but that's a great story.
Great, warm your heart for sure.
We don't have as many characters anymore, and Mon was certainly a larger-than-life character.
He led the way for a lot of us. I'll certainly say he led the way for me.
A well-known radio broadcaster and author has died.
Just ahead, we're looking back at the life and career of Ron Pumphrey. Welcome back. Well, I popped out in the afternoon. The winds seem to have come up in a nasty, kind of bone-chilling, horrible way.
Especially with that wind. I'm still not used to it. I know It's only, well, it was what, -5 today outside. And that wind feeling, you know, closer to minus whatever it was, -15. But it was cold.
The new Brauweiler accuracy, minus whatever. That's when you know it's cold.
Minus cold is what it was, yeah.
It's definitely minus cold.
Yeah, it definitely is. But not a whole lot happening. You know, just some gray skies for the Avalon, parts of the northeast as well. Take a look at the satellite and radar. You can see, like I said, not a whole lot happening. We're starting to see some cloud cover move in, though, for the western portions of the province and up through Labrador as well. That's where we're going to see most of the action tonight. Not much in the way of snow, but maybe that potential for some flurries through the overnight. And if we zoom out, you can see this is our next weather maker that will move in through the afternoon tomorrow, particularly for the southwest coast. So here's a look at those temperatures. As I mentioned, only -7 right now in St. John's, -teens across most of the rest of the island, and then up through Labrador, we're looking at temperatures in the -teens along the coast, a little bit cooler, closer to the -20s. But it's the wind. That's what the factor is right now. You can see nice along the west coast and up through Labrador, not a whole lot happening as far as wind goes. But for the northeast coast, still seeing those strong winds. These are sustained 50 and between 40 and 50 kilometers per hour. Factor in those wind gusts. It's feeling closer, we're seeing gusts closer to 70 kilometers per hour for those exposed areas. And the winds will eventually ease as we head through the night tonight, but as I mentioned, those wind chills feeling closer to the -teens right across the board. Gander -21, and then up through Labrador, again, feeling closer to the -30s as we head through the overnight tonight. So taking a look at that future tracker, we can see not a whole lot tonight, just some flurries moving in overnight for Labrador, or at least the western portion of Labrador anyway. And then through the day tomorrow, that high pressure moves out, and then that low pressure starts to move in. So here's that line right there. Into the afternoon, we'll start to see that snow creep in, and then eventually mix with some potential for some ice pellets towards the overnight and evening hours down along the south coast, Burin Peninsula, and southern Avalon as well. We'll look ahead to that forecast in a little bit. But as far as tonight goes, those temperatures dipping into the -teens for the west coast, central. Port aux Basques should sit around -9 tonight. Those winds fairly light for the west coast, and then staying a little bit strong for the northeast coast again. That potential for a few flurries hanging around as well. Gusts upwards of about 30 kilometers per hour, gusting closer to 50 at times. Otherwise, for Labrador, we're going to see those temperatures climbing for Lab City, -13 by morning. Some southeast winds near 20 kilometers per hour. Along the coast, we're going to see those temperatures rise to the -teens as well. And then for Happy Valley Goose Bay, it looks like a temperature near -21. Now, here's the forecast for tomorrow. All of this weather will move in later on in the day. Again, starting as snow for the southwest, and then eventually making its way for the rest of the island. -8 for St. Anthony. It looks like things should stay as snow, and then up through Labrador. Temperatures in the -teens through the day. Now, we do already have wind warnings in place out ahead of the system along the coast, and then a wreck house wind warning as well. Winds will pick up tomorrow afternoon, gusting about 100, even 150 kilometers per hour for the wreck house area. Along the coast, we could see those winds near 130 kilometers per hour. So definitely something to watch. We'll look ahead as to what's going to happen as far as rain, snow, and freezing rain when I come back in a little bit. Anthony?
Thank you, Ashley. Well, long before Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook let you quickly connect with people on the other side of the world, there was radio. Ham radio, to be specific. Popular since the days of Marconi, and amateur radio still has its devotees.
Victor Oscar 1, Charlie Oscar Delta.
Yeah, Victor Ocean 1, Charlie Oscar Delta. Good friend David. Good morning, David. Hope all is well over there in Canada. Go ahead.
Good afternoon over there, Torgay. My name is David Parsons. I'm from Carbonear. Everything is going good here. You got a great single coming here. You're 5 and 9. Well, I got first interested in radio when I was berry picking with my mother when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And she said, if you could fill up this container full of berries, she said, I got something for you when I goes home. So anyway, when I went home, she gave me a set of walkie-talkies.
Not much. much happening on 10 and 12.
Well, we all know about Marconi. He discovered how to send signals through the atmosphere and bounce signals off the ionosphere.
And that equipment, I'm using the ICOM. Is that
Amateur radio became a means of communications. You got an antenna and you got a transceiver, and you can actually communicate with the outside world. Right now I'm putting it into a homemade sloper dipole made out of a couple of extension cords that didn't like anymore. Oh, internet is just a pile of satellites bouncing the same signal around all over the place, and it could go everywhere. All man-made satellites. Our satellites are the Earth's ionosphere. I got 70 contacts in Japan on radio. Yeah, QSL. And direct from my antenna to his antenna in Japan. With no satellites. Don't need them. Transceiver and a ground rod and a piece of copper wire can put me on the air. I'm with the Baccalow Amateur Radio Club, and we have a call sign VO1A. In Newfoundland, there's approximately somewhere between probably 12 and 1,500 amateur radio operators. Newfoundland is pretty centrally located. You got everything all around you, all around us here in Newfoundland. Really good spot for radio. This is the sun. This is the sunrise. This is the sunset. And this is the gray area. There's no direct sun, and it's not complete darkness. The gray area is a really good time for propagation. And you can see, like, there's a station calling from down here, look, in Madagascar, working the station way over here in California somewhere. All the astronauts and all that, their backup communication is amateur radio. Every astronaut that went aboard that space shuttle program, and I've worked 2 space shuttles. In 1992, I worked the Space Shuttle Discovery, I have it recorded, and the Space Shuttle Atlantis in 1993. Okay, there's 2 radio operators here. They're talking to each other from different places of the world, and they're using Morse code. They're sending a series of dots and dashes back and forth to each other, and they're writing a sentence, and when they cipher out this code that they're hearing. This is digital mode here now. You got a computer hooked up to your rig, right? Your radio is interfaced in, and the computer is sending out the computer message through the antenna to the other station's antenna into his computer with no internet. You take care of yourself up there in South Norway, and we'll do it again another day. Lima Alpha 4, Uniform Oscar Alpha, Victor Oscar 1, Charlie Oscar Delta, Ferry 73, till next time, cheerio.
You can change it. The strength is in you to change it.
A new life after losing 335 pounds.
Tony Bussey is back, this time with his own book.
We'll chat after the break. Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, we are 1 week into our New Year's resolutions, and for many people, losing weight is right at the top of the list. It can be daunting to stick with it, but Tony Buzzy says it can be done, and he's living proof of that. We first introduced you to Tony Buzzy last spring after his amazing weight loss, 330 pounds. Half his body size was gone. The heavy equipment tire changer in Fort McMurray went from size 66 pants to a size 34. And Tony's journey to a healthier man was all prompted by the devastating wildfires in Fort Mac in 2016. And now Tony has a book recounting his incredible journey. Tony joins us from Toronto. Tony, it's great to connect with you. You know, it's so hard to reconcile your before and after pictures. The transformation is absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Why don't you take us back to that aha moment when you said, enough is enough, I have to lose weight?
It was that day during the second evacuation when they went and put me on the bus. And when I looked over and I was taking up half of the next seat to me and looking out the window and seeing all those people having to wait. And the whole idea that one person was having to wait to be evacuated because I was too fat to sit next to was too much. That was it for me. That and the plane was the same thing.
Wow. So there was a big sense of guilt you were feeling.
Guilt, shame, despair, sadness, everything. Everything culminated from years of being that size. It was at that moment that this was it. This was enough. I couldn't keep living on like that.
So how did you do it?
I started pretty much right away. That evening, next day, I cut out breads. And being from Newfoundland, that's a bit hard to do. Everybody loves their bread. And I cut out bread. I cut out pasta. But the big thing is I cut out the processed sugar. And I cut out all junk. It's been about 2.5 years since I've had any treats whatsoever. And I just started walking. And I eat fruits, I eat vegetables, I eat meat, salmon, fish, and I eat a lot of eggs. A very healthy diet, and I continue that way. I don't go back to my old ways at all. I don't touch any treats, and I walk. I just started walking. It was very little at first, a couple of minutes, to now where I'm averaging an hour to an hour and a half a day.
Wow.
Walk.
Now, you said you're sticking with it. A lot of people have trouble keeping their weight off, though. Any advice?
Well, if you're struggling with it, I treat it, and I always talk about, like an alcoholic would treat booze. An alcoholic don't go have a drink once a week. I don't go touch junk food once a week because it almost destroyed me. I had enough of that in my life. And as your life gets easier, you find other things to treat yourself with. Whether it's traveling, whether it's going out buying a new pair of jeans, whether it's so many little things that I couldn't do that I can do now that make me smile. That no bag of chips or a tub of ice cream could ever replace that happiness. I'll never go back to that again.
That's
the life is so beautiful now.
It's a remarkable change in your life for sure, and I understand you're able to do all these things that you're talking about, but you were also able to bring somebody very close to you back to Newfoundland, to your home of St. Lunaire Griget, from Alberta for the very first time.
Yes. I brought my daughter home with me back in June, and she loved it. She wasn't too fond of the weather. Back in June, that was when they had that freak snowstorm going through Gander.
Oh, it was horrible.
Oh, shit. But besides that, she loved the people, mom and dad. She took right to her. Because the thing was, for years, for me to go home, sometimes I would go 7 years without traveling home because I would have to drive home. Because people got to remember that it's not just the flying part, but when you land in an airport, you're never guaranteed that they would have a vehicle big enough to fit you. And I didn't want to take my daughter that long trip across the country. She was young at the time. So when I was finally able to fly and also able to rent any vehicle that they had, we did the trip. And my mom and dad up in St. Lunaire, my brother and his family, they all took to Emma, and she loved them. And it it'd be the highlight of my life. It was wonderful.
So, Tony, just to conclude, you have a book out now called Through Thick and Thin, How the Wildfire Was a Wake-Up Call to Transform My Life. What is your parting message to others watching this evening?
I would say to anybody out there that's feeling like they're too old or too big to change their lifestyle, if you're struggling with any addiction, whether alcoholism or drugs or whatever you're dealing with in your life that's really taking the beauty of your life away, you can change it. The strength is in you to change it. And once you get over it, the happiness that you find is beyond anything that drugs or booze or food can give you. And it's well worth the sacrifice too.
Tony, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Canada's food guide is getting a going over, and changes could put pressure on beverage companies that are already dealing with a squeeze in sales. Canadians are drinking less juice than they used to, and the industry is pushing back. But one market expert says that's the wrong way to go. David Common reports.
Added to the natural goodness of real orange juice.
The pitch line, straightforward. Juice is healthy and good to drink many times a day.
Good morning. It's great to stay up late.
That idea squeezed through to policy too. Canada's food guide has long recommended juice, saying a half glass is the same as a fruit or a half a cup of veggies. Problem is, people aren't buying that anymore.
What we're seeing is that a significant share of Canadians already disassociate juice as having the same benefits as fruit, if you will.
Others have too. The Heart and Stroke Foundation says listing juice as a fruit serving in the Canada Food Guide is bananas.
It comes down to a few reasons, but number one, I would say, is sugar content and the concerns about sugar content. If you look over time, attitudes towards sugar have hardened.
Joel Gregoire does market research for Mintel. Even when the sugar in juice is natural, not added, he says for many Canadians, it's still a turnoff.
We ask consumers about what they're looking for in juice, what type of innovation they're interested in. Are they moderating their juice consumption? And we see that a significant portion of Canadians also say that they are drinking less juice than they used to.
And some see a threat in the new Canada Food Guide expected out in 2019. Already, the feds say the proposed recommendations are for plain water as the beverage of choice to help reduce sugar's intake. Some of Canada's biggest juice makers are pushing back, represented by the Canadian Beverage Association and funded by the likes of Coca-Cola, which owns Minute Maid, Simply, and Five Alive, and Pepsi, which makes Tropicana, Dole, and Ocean Spray. According to an investigation by the Globe and Mail, the CBA has made its case with federal ministers and decision makers more than 50 times in person since October of 2017. And Lassonde, behind Allen's, Oasis, and Del Monte, warns that juice in Canada is under threat and that removing it from the food guide would create unintended consequences. The Canadian Juice Council told CBC News that Canadians are already not meeting minimum recommended intakes for fruits and vegetables. 100% juice, it says, can play a key role in helping to meet daily nutrient requirements.
It's hard to say whether it's a threat, but if I was in the juice industry, what I'd really be looking at is what do consumers really want and where are they at.
David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
The Assembly of First Nations National Chief is criticizing the RCMP today. Perry Bellegarde says the use of force against peaceful protesters blocking pipeline construction in northern BC is a violation of human rights and First Nations rights. 14 people were arrested yesterday as police forcibly removed protesters from a blockade set up by some members of the Wet'suwet'en First Nation. They had set up a camp to control access to the construction project of a pipeline, a natural gas pipeline that will cut through their territory. The company says it signed agreements with all First Nations along the pipeline's route, but protesters say it doesn't have consent from the First Nations hereditary chiefs.
And rallies were held across Canada in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en First Nation. Hundreds marched from Toronto City Hall through downtown. There was also a big turnout on Parliament Hill as protesters in the nation's capital walked to the site of an Indigenous conference where Prime Minister Trudeau was scheduled to speak. And in Calgary, dueling demonstrations with anti-pipeline people on one side and on the other, those demanding the pipeline be built. In Vancouver, the BC Supreme Court was the scene of a rally that drew about 200 protesters.
Here's a live shot of the Prince Philip Parkway in St. John's. Now, a little bit of a storm on the way for the rest of the week. I'll have all those details coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Belltone Hearing Service St. John's, helping the world hear better.
Okay, we're going to get a closer look at that messy weather that you are forecasting for us.
Yeah, it's going to start Wednesday night into Thursday. So if you take a look at the future tracker, you can see starting to see that pink, which means we're going to get into some messy weather. So it should start as snow for the southwestern portion of the province, and then eventually we're going to see things change over to an ice pellet mixture and then to freezing rain. And then rain for parts of the Burin Peninsula up through the Avalon and then parts of eastern Newfoundland as well. Up through Labrador, it looks like things should stay as snow right now and then be a little bit of a long-term snowfall. So we're going to see rounds and rounds of it as we head towards the weekend. Otherwise, a little bit of a break through the day on Thursday and then another round of rain potentially moving in through the afternoon. So this is what I'm thinking as far as snowfall goes up through Labrador, as I mentioned, staying all snow. Same with the northern portion of the island. Now down through the south coast and then parts of central, we're going to see things change from snow to ice pellets to potentially freezing rain, maybe some showers in the afternoon, but right now it's a good bet that it'll stay as rain. And then for eastern Newfoundland and the Avalon, things will start potentially as a snow rain mix through to ice pellets, then freezing rain, and eventually rain by the time Thursday rolls around. And that's because the temperatures are going to climb up with this system. So this is what I'm thinking, about 2 to 3 degrees along the south coast and Avalon. Central hovering between 0 and 1, and that's why I'm thinking we'll see that freezing rain through parts of central. Otherwise, along the west coast, things should stay as snow, -1 in St. Anthony with that snow, and windy conditions as well in behind or out ahead of this system. The warm front is going to lift, and that's why we're going to see that changeover, and then in behind it, things will change back over to snow as we look a little bit ahead as that system. The low is actually going to stay just south of Labrador through the day on Friday, and it sticks around. So that's why we're going to see these rounds and rounds as the warm fronts and fronts move through. So taking a look ahead into Saturday, you can see temperatures are going to stay quite chilly, so more snow along the west coast and then up through Labrador as well through the day on Saturday, and then continue again through Sunday. So it looks like it will be quite busy over the next couple of days. So here's a look at the forecast. Windy conditions again tomorrow, and then into Thursday, Friday will be rather that wintry mix on Thursday, and then into Friday, Saturday looks like it will stay quite sunny through the day. We'll finally see some sun peek out through central Newfoundland, that risk of freezing rain overnight, and then into Thursday as well, with snow continuing on Friday. Potential for some flurries on Sunday, temperatures dipping into the -teens through the overnight, and then western Newfoundland just windy through Wednesday and Thursday, and then that potential for flurries sticking around. Up through eastern Labrador, flurries, and then warming temperatures into the -single digits, dipping back down to the -teens through the afternoon, through the weekend rather. And then for western Labrador, we're going to see the same thing. That long period snowfall could see some significant amounts with that, but I'll have all the details on your weather photo when I come back.
A major figure in Newfoundland history has died. Ron Pumphrey tried his hand at many things during his long career. He was a pioneer in radio broadcasting, a politician, a writer, a journalist, and, as Here and Now's Carolyn Stokes reports, a larger-than-life and controversial character.
Ron Pumphrey knew how to spread his heart around. As a St. John's councillor, longtime host of VOCM's Open Line, an author of 15 books, including 3 autobiographies, a journalist, father of 7, and so much more.
There were so many aspects to him, and I think he had more jobs than anyone else in the Guinness Book of Records.
He was flamboyant, certainly, that he was an extrovert extraordinaire.
People who knew him would say for all his roles, at his heart, he was a storyteller.
And a raconteur. So he said, if you want people to remember what you've said, you have to tell it like a story.
We don't take a necktie and pull it so tight around our city neck that our tongue lolls and that we choke. We free the necktie, we free the collar, we breathe, we facilitate each other. We're living here in this city as a great family.
Former St. John's Mayor Shani Duff remembers him offering her advice.
So he called me aside someday and he said, I want to give you some lessons in how to engage your audience. And they were good, and I remembered them.
He led the way for a lot of us. I'll certainly say he led the way for me.
On radio, Pumphrey was known for the phrase, "Hello, my lovelies, and all the ships at sea," a style that, at the time, influenced future hosts, including Randy Sims.
So he wanted me to have a unique sign-off. So my sign-off was always, you know, be safe, God bless, bye-bye for now. He kind of agreed that that was a good one.
Pumphrey even had an album called To All My Lovelies, plus these two obscure gems, How to Be Happy and Avoid a Nervous Breakdown Newfie Style, and So You Sleep on Your Belly, eh, baby?
As I cool your daddy and pop your rock top to bottom, and hello, my lovelies, and good day, Canadians.
But he loved to entertain an audience, and he was hugely successful at that.
Well, Ron was probably one of the most interesting people in sort of my generation. We don't have as many characters anymore, and Ron was certainly a larger-than-life character.
And Ron Pumphrey's death at age 87 marks another loss of someone from an era when public personalities, the people on our radios and writing our history, were definitely larger than life. Carolyn Stokes, CBC News, St. John's.
Larger than life, broke the mold, whatever way you want to put it. Ron was remarkable. I can see him in his older days in his fedora hat, and condolences to his wife Marilyn and the extended family.
Well, I think there's no denying where this photo was taken. I had to share. I can't get over the amount of photos that we're getting from the snowfall, but yeah, any guesses?
Corner Brook?
Well, I'll tell you when we come back.
Welcome back once again.
We'll take a look right at that photo again because
Sure.
it's impressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of snow.
That is a lot of snow. I don't envy them digging out of that one. But this photo was taken in Stephenville.
Oh, okay, I was close.
Yeah, you were super close.
They are getting walloped on the West Coast this year, aren't they?
Sure
So
are.
far this year.
Yeah.
And more to come. You were just talking about it.
More snow. It doesn't look anywhere as significant as that, but with those winds tomorrow and then more snow on the way through Wednesday into Thursday, could pick up another 10, maybe 15 centimeters of snow. So.
Courtey of Aidan Mahoney, right?
Aidan Mahoney,
now,
yeah.
Was Aidan taking the picture or
it doesn't look like it. No, I think he's in the picture.
A lot of snow.
Yeah.
So a lot of snow for the West Coast. A lot of people are loving that Marble Mountain is open, but the winds, that can wreak havoc with them sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. The good thing is it won't last long. We'll see things clear out a little bit, or at least ease on Wednesday.
See you tomorrow.
Thursday.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.